Hey everyone, this is Ricky with Spoiler Force Podcast, courtesy of Popluck Podcast. You can find more episodes of Spoiler Force Podcast on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, YouTube, or on Facebook at facebook.com/popluckpodcast.
Spoiler Force Podcast! I choose you!
It's an LP beat.
Alright, so this is episode 27 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky. Thank you for tuning in. First, I want to say thank you to LP and Baymong Productions for letting me use their instrumental for my podcast, as always. So check out Indochina Gardens as well. That way, if you guys ever go up there to Boyne City, Michigan, check them out. Great food, great atmosphere at the restaurant as well, and great people and great service. I decided to switch things up a little bit on this episode because I noticed how unenergetic I was in episode 26. Originally that was 2 hours long, and just editing that for a whole week, trying to chop things up, switch things around, it was a lot more difficult this time around. If you listen to it, I wasn't really there. I've been so mentally and physically exhausted since coming back from vacation and just trying to keep myself positive and whatnot. I think it may be due to the whole seasonal depression thing, and also just going to work and coming home in the dark with the time change and all that. So I've been so out of it, and I guess the break that I had an effect on me as well. And I noticed I've been saying the words as well a lot, so I'm gonna try my best to cut that out of my vocabulary. It's probably due to the fact that I used to speak on the phones a lot with customers and with patients with healthcare issues. I do want to just talk about a few things here. This episode's not going to be too long, hopefully not. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour, at least for this episode here, because usually the other episodes are roughly an hour, and I do wish I can get episodes to 2 to 3 hours, but I don't have that kind of following at the moment, and I can't pull those kind of guests to keep the episodes that long. So just keeping it within an hour is my goal for now. I didn't get to talk about this story, so I'll just talk about this first. Back when a few weeks ago, when I went to the Suicide Girls Black Heart Burlesque, a story that I forgot to throw in or mention was the fact that when I went, just how I went there and came back home, because this latest tour in Detroit was at the Redford Theater, which is around 7 Mile on the south side, and I had no idea. It's a good thing I Ubered, or not Uber, but it's a good thing I Lyft there. Both my drivers were pretty cool. My first driver that took me there, he seriously looked like Dopinder from Deadpool, and he was a nice guy. He was quiet. Man, that car stank, and not to be stereotypical, but his car smelled like curry. It did, and I usually don't like this. The smell of it was really strong, so it smelled a lot like paprika and peppers and a lot of garlic, so it smelled like that. But getting there wasn't too bad. It was the way home, and on the way home from the Redford Theater, I went into the wrong lift, and good thing I asked the driver his name, because I would have been in a different spot or in a whole different situation. So I got in the car, and I was like, because both cars were the same, so I went into the wrong car, and I was like, yo, is your name, I believe the name was Anton. I'm like, is your name Anton? I was like, no, my name's George, bro. I look so fucking stupid. So it's a good thing the event there allowed people to buy alcohol, so I played it off like that. Still, it was really awkward, and then I went to the actual driver that took me home. Lesson learned for sure, to always make sure you double check the car, and always ask the name of the driver as well when you take those kind of transportation home. It was funny, at the Suicide Girls Black Heart Burlesque, the event there, I mentioned that I got the front row seat, and again, I didn't get to talk about this on the last episode. What happened during the performances, I was sitting next to two elderly, well, not so much elderly, but this German or Polish couple was next to me, and they were one seat away from me. So pretty much all the seats on my left side were practically empty. So I was sitting in the middle. There's one seat that's empty on my right, and then the seat next to it, that's where the couple sat at. And then they were probably in their, I gotta say, late 30s, early 40s. I mean, they weren't bad looking, but what was funny was you can tell that they spoke whatever native language that they spoke, like from Europe. And it was surprising that they actually came to Michigan to see the show. I'm not sure if they're from Michigan, but what happened was they spoke with me after the show, and they were pretty flirtatious. And when I say they, I mean both of them. So obviously this was a whole swinger thing, and I've never been caught in this kind of situation before. So the lady was more talkative. I mean, obviously the guy didn't approach me because it would have been even more strange. But she was flirting and she was talking to me, and then she was like, "Hey, you want to come back to my place?" And I can't imitate a German or Polish accent, so she was like, "You want to come back to my place and let's hang out?" And yeah, my husband's cool that he wants to hang out with you too. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? And I laughed it off and I said no politely, and I just walked off. It was weird. I've never been in a situation like that ever in my life. And I mean, I always hear about this in the radio, like radio shows and whatnot. But this is the first ever experience of being hit on by swingers, and I definitely did not want to get abducted. They probably would have took my kidney. But yeah, that was the first time that's ever happened to me. Be careful as well, especially when you go to events or venues alone, like how I do. And it's a good thing, like I don't carry any weapons on me, but I should really. But it's a good thing, like I'm pretty like it's a good thing I have a stone cold look, so like it's kind of difficult to approach me because I just look pissed off all the time. Besides being hit on by swingers, I did want to talk about Attack on Titan, because this has been some of the craziest chapters in the past pretty much season, even for this year, really, just this overall ending arc, because Isayama said that he's not gonna do too much left with Attack on Titan, so maybe this arc and maybe one more arc possibly, but I do feel like this is the last of the series right here, because season 4 of Attack on Titan is going to be the last season. But anyways, so I'm just going to sum up this the latest 3 chapters that I've been reading, because I do believe the last chapter I talked about was chapter 120, and that was during the part where Eren and Zeke were in the alternate dimension trying to speak with Ymir, or they were going through Eren's dad's flashbacks. So chapters 121 to 123, which is the most latest chapter. So Eren, you find out Eren's true purpose of what he was doing. He was never on Zeke's side. So after showing Zeke all the memories of his father, you learn that the Attack Titan, which is the power that Eren has, also has the ability to time travel and manipulate every situation of the memories that he has. So really, he has the memories of everyone else who preceded his dad. But with his dad's memories, that's what he's using the most for the base, because of his dad having that power. He was able to see what happened before. It's assumed that Eren's already tried every possibility to, from saving his mom to not saving her, to doing like changing the rifts of time, and pretty much has led him to this point. And so you learn that his mom had to die in order for him to have the powers, because if he never gets it, then none of this ever happens. So you learn that he convinced his dad to kill the Rice family with the Founding Titans ability. He kills them. Before that, really, he hesitated, but Eren pushed him to do it. So he kills them, Eren gets the power, and we get to where we're at right now. And because of the whole time travel, Eren's trying to see if he can find ways to just pretty much free his people. And the thing about Eren is too, what makes him different from Zeke is that Zeke was born into trying to fight for freedom. Eren was born into more of a peaceful time. Even though they're behind the walls, he never really had to face the adversity that Zeke had to face, because Zeke is of royal blood, and he was put into the situation where he had to get the power of the Titans, while Eren, on the other hand, was more civilized. And it's funny that these two are born in opposite spectrums of like their lifestyles, but they both fight for the opposite cause. So Zeke is someone who is trying to pretty much stop the war overall, while Eren is a freedom fighter. He's trying to pretty much save his people at any cost, which is the craziest thing, because now it's gone from to where he wanted to kill all the Titans to he wants to free his people. And for him, true freedom is to annihilate everyone that's against him. That's including the people of Marley, the people on the outside world beyond the walls and whatnot. And during this whole dimensional part of the story, where Zeke and Eren finally meet Ymir, the spirit of Ymir, who is the founding Titan, Zeke believes that because he has the royal blood, that he's meant for the power, while Eren tells Ymir that you no longer have to be a slave to this power. Give it to me and I'll handle everything. Because what happened is, with Ymir, the chapters go into a flashback of who she really was and what really happened to her. Because Ymir is just a child, and apparently what happened in the very beginnings of Attack on Titan, where how everyone got their powers. Ymir was a slave girl who got accused of releasing pigs, and as she ran, the people who pretty much owned her hunted her down like an animal, and she fell into this tree. And I love the imagery of this too. What Isayama did was that the hands looked like they were pretty much like praying hands. And if you're into Norse mythology, or at least that's what I've read this on Reddit and comments on YouTube, that this tree was supposed to be the tree of life, Yggdrasil. I think that's how you say it. As she fell into the tree, her back hit one of the roots, which resembled like the spine, and she hit that and gained the power of the Titans. And pretty much the king who owned her pretty much just forced her to marry him and have his children. And then apparently during one of their raids, they own Marley. Some rebels try to kill the king. Ymir takes the spear to the chest and dies. So while her daughters are still there, the king tells them to eat their mom, pretty much cannibalize her. And then also you learn that the 3 daughters were named after the walls, or the names of the wall. So pretty much Maria, Sina, and Rose. Which was I never thought of it like that. So I thought that was pretty cool symbolism there, or like foreshadowing and whatnot. With their names. So they eat their mom, and then they learn that you have to consume the spinal fluids to gain the power of the Titans. So as that goes on, time passes on, they get more Titan abilities, and pretty much you get the 9 Titans. If you've been reading Attack on Titan, you know that at the end, all the Eldians lose to Marley eventually. They fall like Rome, and then they get sent to the island. And so with Eren telling Ymir that she can be free and let him take over, she grants him the ability of the founding Titans' powers. Back to the actual time, the real time, in the previous chapters, Eren's head got shot off by Gabby, who was one of the girls from Marley. His body just reconnects and starts regenerating like crazy, and then with his power of the founding Titan, he unleashes the rumbling and summons out all of the Titans that were in the walls of Paradise Island. And so all the walls break down. Mikasa kind of realized what side he's really on. But I have a feeling that they know that he's not on Zeke's side, but I don't think they're going to be ready for what's going to happen when Eren's true plans come out. And it seems like this is a do or die situation right now. He pretty much doesn't care anymore. He wants to just do this plan. And in the beginning of chapter 123, you learn that they go to this flashback of when Eren and the Survey Corps first go to Marley, because this is how they're gonna like infiltrate them and learn who they are, what they are. So as of right now, they only know about the prejudice of their own people on that side of the world, and it's crazy because it's so relatable to today's society that. When the majority of the world is afraid of a certain group of people, we kind of forget that with war, we see them as like devils, and They're not, to us who, like, for example, like for us as Americans, we forget that the opposite side that we're fighting, there's also innocent lives over there who don't know what we think of them, and it's vice versa as well. So when Aaron and the team get to Marley, they learn about ice cream, they learn about different kind of foods and whatnot. And a child comes and pickpockets Sasha, rest in peace. He pickpockets Sasha's wallet, and Levi. Good thing Levi was there, and Levi caught him. And then you hear that the Marleyans there, they kind of just like start talking to themselves like, oh, it's a pickpocket. He's probably one of the Eldians. Why don't we just beat his ass on the street and kill him? And it's insane that they think like that already to a child who is born into poverty. For those of you who hasn't read Attack on Titan, there's still Eldians on the other side of the world, not just the island. And that's why there's like Reiner and Berthold and Annie. They are Eldians, but they are born from the other side as well. So people forget about that. They threatened to kill the kid, and then good thing Levi stopped it and like made this excuse and took him away. So Aaron and the rest of the team find out where the other Eldians live, learn about the people there, and learn about the culture there. Get drunk with them. And this next like page or two where it's just Aaron and Mikasa, it's very eye-opening in a way, where you learn how Aaron was thinking already and how much he's changed from the beginning of the series till now, and what he really thinks of Mikasa and what Mikasa thinks of him. And I think Mikasa had a feeling that he was going to do something, but she never acted upon it, and she kind of just in a way brushed it aside. He asks her, what do you think of me? Like, am I someone to you, or am I just family? And her response to him was, we're family. And obviously she probably thinks more of him, but doesn't say anything about it. After that conversation, Aaron leaves, and then that's when he infiltrates Marley, and then that's when this whole war thing breaks out. Aaron's perspective, like, he's gone from someone with just a very straightforward dream to now he's going to end the lives of many to get freedom for his people. If anything, this is probably one of the best character developments in a long time. If you watch the anime series, you kind of just brush him off because he's always angry and very hasty and rash, but this time around in the manga itself, he's very calculated. He knows what he's going to do, and he doesn't care. He's going to sacrifice many lives just to get his point across and to save his people. Like, he's strictly for his people. So he's fighting for his cause at the cost of many, and it's insane to see Aaron like this now in this series. And my predictions towards the end of this series, do I think he's gonna die? If anything, I think he is. One of my theories was that I believe Armin is the real hero, because in the anime, Armin's the one who's narrating, and I feel like Armin is the one that's narrating this whole story as well. And I don't know, I have a feeling that maybe either Mikasa or Levi is gonna die. I believe Levi lost a part of his hand from the explosion from Zeke, but Levi hasn't come back yet anyway. And there's still Annie that's crystallized at Paradise Island. Reiner's still around. Armin, who has the Colossal Titan ability. So there's still all these characters at play, and with Aaron using the Founding Titan ability and summoning the other large Titans that were in the wall, he's controlling everything right now. So pretty much everything's in Aaron's hands, and he has the best opportunity to act upon whatever he wants. So I think he's gonna attack Marley first, and then move on to the rest of the world. But I don't know. I don't want to think Mikasa. I can't see Mikasa being the one that kills Aaron. If anything, she's probably gonna die protecting him. Maybe Levi might do something, and there's still Hanji too, and the other main characters like John, Connie. I don't know. I really don't know at this point. But at the end, I feel like it's gonna be Armin at the end. He's gonna be one of the ones that survives for sure. Another thing I was like hoping for is that hopefully Annie comes out of the crystal. I still feel like she's gonna play a huge part in the series, even though she's been crystallized this entire time. She's been crystallized since the ending of the first season, and up until now she's still there. And Armin's the only one who's like really checked on her, and even in previous chapters he went into Berthold's memories and saw what he felt about Annie too. So I think that's gonna come into play. And if anything, Reiner is for sure going to play a huge part in this finale or this final fight too. So those are my thoughts on Attack on Titan. If you have not read the manga, please read it, because you just witnessed, you're missing out. You're not witnessing. You're not going to witness the greatness of this series, or at least this finale as well, because I know that the anime is great right now too with what they ended with season 3, but right now in the manga it is so good, and it makes me think that, or it makes me remember how great the series was, because right now I'm riding this Demon Slayer hype right now, but every time I go back to Attack on Titan, relive the moments that were great, and just read the manga itself, it reminds me that this is why Attack on Titan was my number one favorite manga for the past 4 to 5 years. It's a great story overall, and just the symbolism and the metaphors, and there's a lot of relatable things that you can read about in Attack on Titan and bring it into what we live in today as a society. Again, Isayama's doing a great job with this series as well. It's gonna be sad to see the series end, but keep it short, really. I would not want this to continue on like how Bleach is. So, don't quote me on this either. I've read something online that there's a possibility that Bleach may come back, so hopefully it doesn't. But yeah, but read Attack on Titan, man. Attack on Titan right now is probably one of the best series you can read right now and watch. And then I do want to talk about the latest chapter of My Hero Academia. I know that the last episode I spoke about the last several chapters, but with this chapter specifically, it's chapter 249. And what I loved about this chapter is that you learn more about Endeavor, because last Friday they took a break and they ended it off with the Todoroki family inviting Midoriya and Bakugo over to their place to eat with them and to kind of just hang out with them, because they get invited by Shoto's sister. So Midoriya, Bakugo, Shoto, and Endeavor, they go back to Endeavor's home, and they get to meet Natsu, which is one of Shoto Todoroki's brothers, and also don't think I wrote down the sister's name, but they get to meet the sister of Todoroki as well. Bakugo is just funny and just brutally honest, because he doesn't like the whole family dynamic of the Todorokis, how they're all dramatic and whatnot, and they kind of know that because Shoto is the one that's the more favored one. He's meant to carry on the will of Endeavor, and he's going to be the one that supposedly surpass All Might for Endeavor. So his siblings don't really care about the whole hero aspect, and you learn that Shoto's been corresponding with his mom, writing letters to her and hoping that she can come back home with the family. And then you can still see a little bit of resentment with Shoto towards his dad too, because he's like, when he's speaking with his siblings, he still mentions that it's his dad's fault. That's why she's like that, and that's why I got burned. So he still has a little bit of resentment towards his dad. And then as they're eating, you kind of just see how Shoto's brother Natsu, he's pretending to enjoy the family thing, and he just walks off because he can't stand Endeavor either. So this family dynamic gets to Bakugo, and he's like, just ignore your family stuff, and you can't have this stuff if the dishes are there. And he's just pointing out every little thing, and being Bakugo, you can just see him like overreacting and screaming all the time, and it's just funny how hot-headed he is. And towards the end of this chapter though, Endeavor goes to a shrine to where one of the children, apparently one of Shoto's siblings, had passed. And in the beginning of this chapter, Endeavor talks about having a dream with his family and seeing that he's not there with his family. But at the end of the manga, or at the end of this chapter in the manga, Endeavor mentions that the eldest son isn't there too, and he wishes that he was there. And apparently he's mentioned him in the arc where Class A and Class B were versing each other. And Todoroki's brother Tuya he was meant originally to surpass Endeavor because his flames were way hotter, but because he was very weak-minded like his mother, he apparently died. And there's a mention of Tuya to Todoroki back in that arc where Endeavor's like, you can't learn the Hellfire Flame, or you have the best chance of learning the Hellfire Flame better than Tuya because you have a different mindset. And it leads on to the whole theory of Dabi. And back when I was talking about the villain arc, all the villains got their backstory. Toga, Shigaraki, Twice, even the Liberation Army. They all got their past revealed, and the only character that hasn't really gone into was Dabi. And everyone who's seen or watched and read My Hero knows that Dabi is also he's a flame type. His quirk is a flame type, and with his ability, he has blue flames, and he can. His flames are so hot that he burned himself, and that's the thing. And I went back and watched the not the invasion arc, but the arc where they're training in the forest, and where Shoto first meets Dabi, where he crosses paths with him. And then when Shoto was trying to save Bakugo, when he was transformed by the magician guy, and Dabi catches the ball or the orb that is Bakugo, and he goes like something about like, it's so sad, it's sad for you, Shoto Todoroki, and he steps back into the shadow. And that's kind of like the first interaction of Shoto and Dabi. And then now with this whole chapter of Tuya being revealed dead, and Endeavor previously speaking about Tuya's ability as well, I don't think they know that he is Dabi. And if anything, when Endeavor first meets Dabi as well, Dabi calls him by his first name. And I mean, these are easy, obvious breadcrumbs of this story here. And like I've said before, I think Todoroki, or Shoto Todoroki, is going to be the one that fights Dabi at the end. I'm excited for this. I really want his story to just be revealed and to see how he survived, if Endeavor is claiming that he's dead. And hopefully they touch upon that as well. And if his mindset is like his mother, then there's obviously he snapped some time ago when he was training with Endeavor. And this is gonna be something that haunts Endeavor as a character, because Endeavor is trying to redeem himself as a hero, and not just as a hero, but as a father to his family. And this is going to be a great dynamic between these characters as well. And maybe Dabi kills Endeavor in the process. I don't know. He probably could, because his flames are hotter. And even in the anime, they show that Endeavor can reach the blue flames, but Dabi already has the blue flames, and that's gonna be something as well. And I think that Shoto is gonna be the one that fights his brother, or supposed brother. And yeah, that's gonna be something that's gonna be very shocking in the My Hero manga as well. And I do hope that this fight is gonna be greater than or surpass this build up that I'm assuming. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this potential fight between Dabi and Shoto, and I do hope that they move past this whole training arc with Endeavor and Bakugo and Midoriya, because I mean we all know that all these students have to be trained. I just want this story to progress, because My Hero takes forever with these training arcs. So hopefully they can just pass on with this and touch up more about the serious stuff with this series. I've been trying to get back more into watching anime. Earlier today I watched this series, How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift? This is a weightlifting anime, which, I mean, obviously anime has a genre for everything, but I first discovered this series on Facebook with those like anime clips, and I watched the clip where the main girl, she punches the heavy bag, and it's kind of like a homage to One Punch Man. And with this story, I only watched the first episode on Funimation while it's free, so there's a lot of like commercial and all that stuff, so like it takes forever to watch one episode. But this overall story is about this girl, Hibiki Sakura, who is a high school girl who is learning to lift weights because she feels like she's not getting slimmer. Over the summertime, she's been like indulging in food, and you can tell that her character, she loves to eat. So as she's eating, her friends tell her like she's gaining weight, she can't fit into her clothes anymore. So she goes to this gym, I believe it's Silverman's gym, and then she learns how to lift weights or do workouts, and then that's pretty much it. Or at least that's pretty much the majority of the first episode. And then at the end of this episode, her workout partner, who is like another student at her school, who has a fetish for weightlifting as well, she tells Hibiki that she has the best opportunity to work out, because if you love to eat, then you can work out even harder. So, and that's pretty much the end of the first episode. And hopefully, with this series, it gets more comical, or at least I believe that's what it is. I mean, it's funny already, but it's very typical like anime comedy. I mean, it's something that not everyone can watch. I like it so far, so I'll probably take more time into watching this first season. And I believe it's only one season so far. And again, I'm watching this on Funimation, but it's pretty interesting so far. Again, it's not for everyone. It's funny. The animation's very good, and it's informative because they teach you on the proper workout techniques. But that's pretty much that first episode, and that's what the show's about. So again, it's how heavy are the dumbbells you lift. I don't know why animes are making like really weird titles. One of the weird titles that I was drawn to was the whole "I want to eat your pancreas," which was the film or anime film, and I'm gonna get that sometime later this week. Crunchyroll sent me an email saying that it's been shipped out, so hopefully I get it. And once I get it, I'll be reviewing that again, but on the podcast. So stay tuned for that and look out for that episode. Another anime that I finished watching recently was KonoSuba. KonoSuba is a comedy isekai genre, which is like, you know, Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, but it's a comedy, and it's I don't believe I talked about this series, but the main character Kazuma dies, gets reincarnated, and gets sent to the world of where he's at. And instead of choosing or making something that he can bring with him to that world, he brings the goddess Aqua. So it's his adventures with Aqua, the warrior Darkness, or La Latina, which is her real name, and then also Megumin, who is the black mage in their group. And it's just their funny adventures, what they do as a team, and how he interacts with his teammates, because Aqua is a lazy goddess. Darkness is someone who, she has a fetish of humiliation and physical pain. And then Megumin is a black mage who only masters explosion magic. In this story, they can like upgrade their stats and whatnot on this card, and Megumin puts all her experience points on her explosion magic, and so she can do a very powerful spell once per day. And and so that's what makes it more comical, because Kazuma has to deal with these idiots that are in his group. And I mean, he's also an idiot too, because he pretty much can't move on with his adventure that's supposed to fight and defeat the demon lord and whatnot, and he's spending too much time with his team doing all of these silly stuff. The first season was really interesting because throughout this whole first season they're pretty much broke, and so they have to find ways to make money and whatnot. And the second season was more about them trying to adventure out of the village that they're in, and they pretty much get like more teammates, or not so much teammates, but they pick up more allies along the way. And then the reason why I'm speaking about KonoSuba is because their movie is coming out this week, Tuesday, November 12th, and I'm gonna be at the Imagine Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan, watching that film. I'm very excited for this, so I'm gonna be talking about that film too. I wish I can get someone to speak KonoSuba with me, because I don't really know anyone else that watches KonoSuba, and this is the kind of series that I'd like to have a guest to talk about and discuss with, instead of just going over brief like overviews of the series. So KonoSuba, again, definitely watch that. You can watch that on Crunchyroll and VRV. I don't think it's on Hulu, but it is a very funny anime, and the animation's so great as well, especially with like the goofy stuff where Aqua like throws her fits and whatnot, and they animate it very well. If you follow Facebook a lot, like those anime stuff, one of the popular clips is the rock paper scissors scene, and where Kazuma's like he's never lost in rock paper scissors, so Aqua uses a blessing technique to boost her stats, and Kazuma starts screaming at her, and then they play again, and he beats her. So I think that's very, very hilarious. And with the film that's coming out, it's going to be about Megumin the Black Mage, because her story is not really told too much in the series. So they're gonna go. The synopsis is they're gonna go back to her hometown, to where she's from, because she has a very funny name. So they make fun of her in the beginning for that. So I'm very excited again to watch this film on Tuesday, and hopefully I can find someone to speak about KonoSuba with eventually in the future. And I think that's it for my anime manga talk right now. I really wish I could get more into like the whole manga stuff, but I'm so caught up with comics too, or comic books, like Western comic books like DC and a little bit of Marvel, but anime and manga, it's slowly coming back for me again. And hopefully I can talk more about that stuff too. I also watched the latest Titans episode 10. I forgot the title of it, but surprisingly, there's only like 3 more episodes of Titans left, and the second season will be done. I still need to find time to watch Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol, but I'm not making time for that stuff. With episode 10 of Titans, it's pretty much just the aftermath of Grayson going to jail after he attacks the airport police, and they kind of just show what the process of what happens to him. He goes to jail. He gets one of the guards tries to give him like special treatment, like give him a cell that's isolated, but Grayson refuses to do that because he doesn't want to get treated differently. So he gets bunked with this Mexican cartel-ish group, and eventually you learn that this Mexican cartel group that he's with, they're actually being deported, and they were trying to escape the gang life in Mexico, and they're trying to escape the prison to be free. And then one of the guys, he speaks about their god that they believe in, the Ala Azul, I think that's what they called it, but he draws like a bird on the walls with a shank knife, and it's they just kind of tease the whole Nightwing thing. Nightwing photos have been released online earlier this year, so I mean everyone knows that Grayson gets the suit, but I believe they're gonna pull like a Daredevil thing where it's at the end where he gets the suit after he fights Deathstroke again and kind of redeems himself and gets out of the whole Robin Shadow thing. So that's pretty much what happened with Grayson. But then with Garth finally finds Superboy again and tries to help Connor again, but then they get caught up because of Connor's business with fighting the cops and trying to be a quote-unquote hero. And my favorite character out of this series, or at least this part of the season, is Crypto, the dog. They make Crypto very likable. He's not just some super strong dog, but Crypto is more interactive with the characters, and he knows his way around. He came back to the Titans Tower to get Garth so they can find Superboy. But Crypto's been one of my favorites. The animation's not too great, but or at least when he's fighting, but it's Crypto, and I'm glad that they're using Crypto in this series. Garth gets taken down by Candace because they get followed by them as they're trying to get Superboy, and they tell Superboy that they can fix him and whatnot, and then Garth is just pretty much on lockdown, and I think they want to experiment on him some more too because of his ability to transform into a tiger, but hopefully they give him more abilities to or at least more animals to turn into. I think he turned into a snake earlier in this series, but the tiger is his main form so far. And then Raven goes AWOL. She kills a guy. The whole Raven aspect of the show, it's not too great. I'm glad they laid off her story because that was all about her in season 1. And Donald Troy is just looking for her, so that's pretty much what's happening in this episode. Nothing too much happens. I mean, she finds like this rogue little group of teenagers, but that's it. Nothing special. It's all about Grayson really in this episode. And hopefully they get back into the main story. I do want to see more of Hawk and Dove, because those two are my favorite throughout this entire show so far. And hopefully they bring the Titans together, and hopefully they show more Deathstroke. But overall, this episode was much better than last week's. It's not as depressing, but they're teasing more the whole Nightwing aspect. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Oh, it's some last minute stuff here before I sign off. before I sign off. I am watching Fire Force again, which was the firefighting anime. I'm surprised that they're still ongoing. There's 16 episodes so far. Hopefully that the season goes up to like 20 plus episodes, so I can just binge watch the rest of it. But I am getting back into it again. That's one I spoke about this earlier this summer, that the animation fight scenes are really good. I just haven't had time to go back and watch it. I'm also this last topic. Also, My Chemical Romance got back together, or they announced that they got back together a week or two ago. And even though Gerard Way is more happy now, it's gonna be pretty unique to see how he is right now, because he's gained a lot of weight from the whole writing DC and helping to direct Umbrella Academy on Netflix and whatnot. He doesn't look the same. He doesn't look how he used to look, and it's not a bad thing. I'm glad that he's mentally more healthy. Physically, he just looks like he's more content. I've been following My Chemical Romance since I was in middle school, and again, thanks to my cousin Lee Mong, who was a previous guest on Spoiler Force, he introduced me to them. And the very first song I heard from them was Helena, which is by far my favorite My Chemical Romance song. I'm glad that this band is back together. They defined my youth growing up. I get made fun of for listening to them. I wasn't big into the whole emo look as a kid, but their music definitely was a part of my life. And Gerard's story is definitely an inspiration to me as well. I believe I have most of his Funko Pops from Hot Topic, and I have a lot of his books as well, and the Umbrella Academy stuff. So if I ever meet Gerard Way, I would love to have most of the stuff that I own signed by him, and I do want to meet him. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this in my Comic-Con episode, way back in episode like 3 or 4, but Gerard Way was in Michigan during one of the times I was at Motor City Comic-Con, and he wasn't a guest. He was there just wandering around because he had a concert that day, and I regret not going to that concert because it was his solo tour. And I think about it and I get so upset because I didn't get to see him at Comic-Con, and I never got to meet him at the concert. But if I ever get to meet Gerard Way, and if he ever listens to this podcast, I would love to meet the dude. He's one of my heroes growing up. His music has been a part of my life, or not just has been, but is a part of my life. And I respect his work as a creative artist and writer and a musician. And he's truly an inspiring artist. I keep repeating myself, but he's truly an artist to me. And from writing comic books to writing music to having a successful band to being a successful comic book writer with the Young Animals line and his own stuff with Dark Horse and all that. It's truly amazing and inspiring, and and that's pretty much the word I can think of when I hear Gerard. The word that comes to mind is inspiring. Yeah, and I hope I get to meet him one day. I've seen Frank Iroh with my friend Tanya. I bought the Ray Toro solo album on iTunes, and I bought Gerard's younger brother's comic book series to Mikey Way's The Collapser, which is part of DC's Young Animals line. It's a six issue series. I haven't started reading it yet, but I bought it just because it's by Mikey Way. So hopefully it's good. But if he's working with Gerard, it's for sure going to be interesting. And for those of you who didn't know, Joe Rogan and Gerard Way are also cousins. Back on the podcast of Joe Rogan's episode with Kevin Smith, he confirms that, but they just don't know each other. As of right now, it is 12:40 a.m. On a Monday. I had to go to work in about like 5 hours, so I'm still trying to get episode 26 uploaded on Facebook, but it is up on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud as well. So if you want to be a guest, email popluckpodcast@gmail.com. Leave us your concerns, comments, questions on the popluckpodcast@gmail.com email, or you can message us on Facebook as well. Message me on Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. Also, follow Popluck Podcast, not just on Facebook, but Andrew has gotten Popluck Podcast back up on Anchor Podcast. Anchor is apparently a app for podcasters to use, and you can link that with your SoundCloud and all this other stuff that Anchor does. I just know that it's free, it's legit, but I'm gonna stick to what I use right now with SoundCloud and the Hokusai app and whatnot. So if you want to be a podcaster and you want to try something simple and free, try Anchor. Ari Spears uses it, so and he's also sponsored by them, so definitely use it. Oh, and also, and before I end things here, continue to read your comic books, watch your anime, and follow us again on all social media platforms, and share this stuff if you want to. Help rate the podcast as well. More rates will allow my podcast to be seen by more people. So this coming Saturday, November 16th, I will be having guest Tuho Shong, a freelance photographer of his own studios, 2HX Studios. He will be a guest on that date as well, and then the week after, most likely the Sunday of that following weekend, November 24th, I believe, I will be having DC Reacts, who is a Hmong review and a reactor to the Hmong hip hop community. He pretty much just critiques and gives his thoughts on the latest trends of Hmong hip hop and music, and he also does interviews with Hmong artists, more with the West Coast rappers. But I do believe he is working on getting more Midwest and East Coast rappers as well in the Hmong community. So make sure you follow him too, and he'll be a guest as well, and I'm excited for that. And I'm also trying to get one more guest. If I can get one more guest before the end of this year, that'll wrap things up. Have a good night.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow my Instagram at RickyVang92, RICKYVANG92, and follow Popluck Podcast on Facebook.com/PopluckPodcast.